Relationships are beautiful,
terrifying,
painful,
warm,
sad,
passionate,
intimate,
motivating,
fragile. That is to say, they are complicated. Romance is seemingly built upon an overwhelming mixture of variables, clamoring and clashing together to form a product that is messy yet precious. There is no one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter way to love another. As such, you are left with the novelty of having what could only be described as your own personal expression of affection. Why else would there be any discussions on the idea of love languages? However, with a connection so imperfect, it is no surprise that they are equally vulnerable to wearing and tearing at the seams. Welcome, my achievement hunters and collectible gatherers. 'Tis the season of cold weather, gift-giving, overweight burglars named Nick, cold weather, Coca-Cola advertisements, and did I mention cold weather? That aside, I want to talk about the most important aspect of any fun festivities. Bonds. Bonds come in many shapes and sizes, whether it be your family, close friends, adorable pets, or the chill homeless guy outside asking for the special sauce.
Yo, you got any?
Up. I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm a college student, so I probably have less than you do, man.
Well, would you like to split this ramen cup?
You know what? I'd appreciate that, old man. Thank you.
You think internet slang will look different 3 years from now saying shit like, ouch, that's gonna leave a laboo-boo?
Oh god, I hope not. That sounds like an insufferable future. Aw, look at that. Isn't human interaction simply splendid? Back on track, this is episode 11 of the Complete Critique series, where I pick apart some of your favorite games to see where they excel, or maybe even where they fail. And for today, we'll be covering one of my all-time favorite visual novels, 2023's Slay the Princess. If you've somehow been living in an igloo the past few years, Slay the Princess is an indie psychological horror game by developer Black Tabby Games. A tale as old as time concerning a hero, a princess, and their interesting relationship. It even takes place at a cabin in the woods, the perfect holiday getaway, I'd say. I'll be critiquing 8 classic categories for our quiet hero and damsel of distress. These, of course, being storyline, gameplay, characters, enemies, locations, aesthetic, music, and content. Without further ado, let's completely critique Slay the Princess. Halt, weary traveler! This is an analysis and not just some layman's review. Meaning there will be plenty of spoilungas ahead. You have been warned. As my geography professor often said, I've been doing a whole lot of yammering. Relationships this, bonds that, we get it, Hunter, but what is Slay the Princess even about in the first place? Well, case closed. That was way easier than expected. This has been 100% Hunter, and as always, You guys don't realize how many cruel endings and deadly routes it took me to reach this very moment. A second later, and it would have ended already. Though honestly, I'm not feeling it either. Seems like a lot of work. Well, I sure as heck ain't gonna do it. And what, pray tell, makes you think I'm gonna? Ugh, fine. Let's amalgamate and get this over with. Slay the Princess is a narrative that takes place through the eyes of a hero tasked with saving the world. However, the only way to prevent the untimely demise of the planet is to enter the depths of a woodland cabin and slay a chained-up princess. According to the disembodied voice, known aptly as the narrator, this particular princess is capable of killing the entirety of humanity simply by existing. Thus, the choice is yours. Plunge the steel dagger into the suspicious lady or disobey the narrator and rescue her from unjust imprisonment. It is also here that you learn real quick what the game's truly about. Now, I just want to preface that there are a lot of routes in Slay the Princess. So while I may present 2 options here, just know that there are far more than 2 outcomes depending on certain dialogue selections. Regardless, the choices all lead up to the same conclusion. Something goes terribly wrong, and you die. The following events are what immediately separates this game's branching storyline from any other visual novel I've played. The protagonist ends up back in the woods where he started, and just like before, enters the cabin. Though, unlike before, the interior has changed, and so too has the princess. She's less, fair maiden and more damn But this, divine transformation didn't simply happen out of the blue. One major theme of Slay the Princess is the weight of perception. Player preconceptions, followed by action, directly distort the princess's appearance, personality, and behavior. You may believe her to be harmless, innocent even. She is then molded into the perfect caricature of a princess whose sole trait is undying devotion. Or you go in preparing for a threat against the world, either skeptic or aggressive in your approach. The princess, in return, alters herself to become equally conniving or combative. Hell, even being scared of the princess shapes her into a literal nightmare.
She raises a hand to her mask and pulls it down. You don't get the chance to see what lies beneath before it envelops you.
This is the first instance of the world bending to the protagonist's will, even if it may not be clear quite yet. Continuing on, you keep interacting with the princess, chatting, brawling, escaping. You might die once, you may not. Eventually, though, there comes a point where the world itself intervenes, as the background itself is filled with a dark, flowing veil. Whatever interaction was going on prior is grinded to a halt, as the princess is taken away by an army of appendages. Get it? 'Cause it's a ton of arms? Sorry, I'll get back to narrating. In the princess's place appears a mirror that I'll come back to later, but for now, it doesn't matter. And that's because we got a bigger problem in front of us. What in existential dubiety is that thing?
Flickering lights and empty cityscapes.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. You know, maybe we're not so different after all. People often say my lights are on, but nobody's home too. Also, I've been meaning to ask, what happened to the princess from earlier? One minute I was having the duel of a lifetime, and the next here I am in this vast vacant space that, not gonna lie, kinda smells like mildew.
She'll make for a gentle heart.
Oh, you're a freak. Okay, I'm just gonna go and reset the timeline now. So yeah, TLDR, that thing resides in a space called the Long Quiet, but only exists as a fragment of her former self. Our goal is then to gather more perspectives and bring them back to her so that we can uncover the truth behind our existences. You arrive on a path in the woods, the narrator does his utmost to prevent the princess's survival, and you continue to make difficult decisions. Through trials and tribulations, an ebb and flow of death and rebirth, you discover various vessels, each different from the last. In response, the entity in the Long Quiet gradually becomes more whole. She informs us that each princess is merely a means to an end, avenues of expression that serve to shape her entirety. However, she is not the only one changing across each route, as every time you gaze into the mirror at the end, you too appear unfamiliar. The text here shows a story of its own. It's you. You've grown. You've withered. You've unraveled. You are nothing at all. I love this series of phrases and their attached meaning. On a surface level, it documents the sequence of a decaying body, bloating and rotting until nothing remains. But deeper down, this represents the protagonist's steady realization that their physical form, the bird-like creature, is not necessarily their true form. This leads us into the second main theme of Slay the Princess, the concepts of stagnation and change. You may have begun to notice by now that there is a whole lot of each. Every time the player reaches a new vessel, they are reset to the beginning, the path in the woods. It scarcely, if ever, deviates from that introductory script. This instills a sense of formality. Despite how brutal or terrifying your eventual death might be, you have somewhere recognizable to return to. Alternatively, change itself is interwoven into the stagnant script. Your choices as a player do have consequences that directly affect the princess's every attribute. The entity in the Long Quiet even goes as far as to prevent you from treading along the same route again, ensuring you find a brand new vessel every time. This striking contrast between stillness and progress reminds me of another series centered around constant loops, ReZero. Disclaimer, I will spoil the barest bones premise of this anime, but not really any important story elements. Still be warned if you want to go in completely blind. In this anime, the protagonist, Subaru Natsuki, is transported into another world. Yada yada, classic isekai fantasy shenanigans, nothing too crazy. Until he dies for the first time.
俺が必ずお前を救ってみせ
Moments later, he is brought back to a checkpoint, so to speak, one that occurred preceding his death. Now, Subaru has a chance to overturn the dire fate that would have otherwise come to pass. The reason I bring this series up at all is because these death loops are a mirror image of the ones seen in Slay the Princess. Both protagonists are given a chance to switch up where they go, how they act, what they say, all so that they can achieve their desired ending. But at the same time, these loops always bring them back to a familiar still point in time that can can be used as a foothold. Back to Slay the Princess, this dichotomy becomes even more clear during the finale after retrieving the 5th and final vessel. Following a brief chat with the narrator, who subsequently dies, the entity that you've been helping all this time bursts forth from the long quiet. And I just want to say, the finale is epic as hell.
I can finally see you, and you can finally see me.
This is the Shifting Mound, the title given to the person we've been assisting. She is the physical embodiment of change, including what the narrator feared most, death itself. We also learn that our favorite feathered protagonist is the Long Quiet. The construct encompassing both characters, the world around us, is actually just another piece of us. If the Shifting Mound represents everything, we represent everything that it is not. If she is dynamic motion or perpetual growth, we are equal parts eternal stasis. I mean, come on, their names basically say everything you need to know about them.
Ever the passive player, always reacting and never acting. But it's woven into your nature, isn't it?
During your interactions with the Shifting Mound, she poses arguments voiced by all the individual princesses you met across the loops. These were executed incredibly well and superbly sum up the distinct plot lines explored within each route. At this moment, the two beings are as close to their original godhood as possible. It is quite literally a cosmic clash of ideals. And just like everything that came before, it is left up to you to be the decider. Whether that be liberating the Shifting Mound and escaping the creator's construct, or interacting with the heart of the Shifting Mound. Hold up, that's a shit ton of information, right? How do we go from slaying a princess to cosmic scale deities? Well, you're welcome. I just gave you the authentic Slay the Princess finale experience. Though not to discredit how sick the climax feels, it's just a bit overwhelming? Overstimulating? I don't know, it's a lot. So, I guess here are some quick explanations of the terms I brought up. Read about it if you want, but they aren't too difficult to grasp. Anyways, moving on to the endings themselves, I can't help but feel that they were a bit lackluster in comparison. For me personally, the best of the bunch were the endings where you talk to the princess at the heart of the Shifting Mound. At her heart is a cabin, and within that cabin is a fragment of the princess to which you can decide a fate for the two of you.
I've got a special deal just for you today, Big Shot. We got 3 doors, 3 futures, and 3 exciting prizes. What's the prize? Cromer, of course. Wait, wrong game. The prize is a satisfying conclusion to 5 timelines of suffering. So you're gonna go with door number 2. Your wish is my command. But first, let's see what's behind the other doors, shall we? Behind door number 1 is the narrator's wish fulfillment ending. Ever wonder what life would be like if the narrator got his way? Well, here's a world devoid of death and change. The construct is gone and the world is yours to mold. Huh? Not satisfying enough for you? Okay, door number 3 might pique your interest just a bit more. What do we have here? Oh look! It's the ending where you leave with the heart of the Shifting Mound and cast away any godhood you may have once otherwise had. You're more concerned about the repercussions of leaving your divine duties behind to an uncertain future? Holy buzzkill! Whatever! You didn't win either of those anyway. The time has arrived for your door of choice. Door number 2. If open-ended is too broad and the unknown concerns you, then how about a middle ground ending where you do it all over again from the start? 5 more timelines of suffering? That's gotta be the equivalent of a Zoc, 'cause sheesh. Sorry, but no take-backsies, friend. Off to a path in the woods you go.
Damn it. And those were the endings I enjoyed. Then there were the ones for the Shifting Mound herself. One option being to throw hands with her, destroying the lass in the process. This leads to a result very similar to killing the heart of the Shifting Mound. The second option is to leave this plane with the Shifting Mound, embrace your godhood, and break through the construct to explore new worlds, or something like that. This is probably the kind of shit that led to Genshin Impact, so yeah, it's a bad end. Hopefully it is clear by my joking that I don't resent these conclusions. I mainly found them a little underwhelming. You play through all these intriguing routes, make it through a climactic confrontation, and then suddenly the game is over, roll credits. The endings are either open to interpretation, predictable, or plain unsatisfactory. And I do understand the appeal of leaving it up to player interpretation, but compared to, say, a Danganronpa game, its endings didn't quite feel compelling enough. At least they weren't enough for me. but maybe you felt different. Even some of the routes themselves felt decisively simplistic. Key examples being the Razor, Witch, and Grey, whose respective stories were set in stone with minimal variability. No matter which dialogue you select during these, the outcome feels relatively the same. However, I didn't mind too much since there are thematic reasons for such. Actually, the primary issue I had with routes was not that. Instead, it was the order you play them, because believe it or not, route order matters. I respect Slay the Princess for letting you get any vessel as your first, because it shows how much freedom players have. But between you and me, I would have personally been fine with a few routes being locked behind specific criteria, such as game completion. Take princesses like the Wild or Moment of Clarity that include the entire roster of voices you can meet in the game, effectively spoiling them all. Depending on your preferences, this can either be a neat little preview for what's to come, or completely kill the anticipation of meeting new characters. Funny enough, these were actually two of my first 5 princesses during my initial playthrough, which is unfortunate. Now, let's look at the final route I ever got, the Princess and the Dragon. Want to take a guess at what my favorite route ended up being by the end of the game? Bingo! And I don't think it's any coincidence either. In fact, I believe that if I had gotten this route as one of my first, it would not be my unequivocal favorite. Probably still close, but not quite the top. And that sounds weird, right? Hell, it is damn near egregious to think that my route biases could be so easily swayed by order played, by recency over objective narrative strength. So let me try to explain this the best I can. The most simplified reason I can give for something like this is the power of the first impression. For reference, leading up to this route, I'd met 23 entire uniquely impressionable versions of the princess, but we barely heard or understood her personal thoughts, and that is key in a game about opposing perspectives. So imagine my delight upon entering the Princess and the Dragon, just to get thrown into the very role of victim. That sounds freaky as fuck, but we're gonna roll with it. It felt like the stars aligned. This is the route that would conclude everything that came before. Because through the struggles, the realizations, the painful encounters, the princess and the long quiet are at their most intimate in this chapter, forced to hear every little thought that races through the other's mind with no interruptions from external voices. I can only imagine the degree to which this payoff could have been diminished if the Princess and the Dragon were my first route. Will this affect every player equally? No. But there are certainly chapters that would benefit from having an understanding of the world in advance. Alright, grievances aside, I'm gonna end this section with 2 general points of praise that I have to give the game's story overall. I couldn't figure out where to put them in the script, so I'm just gonna throw them at the end here. Don't mind me. To start, humor.
The look. The look. We've all used it. Yeah, do you not know about the look? Even I know about the look. You flash the princess, the look. And a rosy blush rushes to the princess's cheeks as she breaks into a wide grin. Unbelievable.
Oh, is that how it is? Yeah, okay, I feel that. I like you too. Neat.
Oh, be damned, this is actually going to work, isn't it?
Still going to kill you.
This game made me laugh and giggle, and you know what that means. No! I'm not gonna explain further. YouTube would not appreciate that. Slay the Princess is hilarious when it wants to be, which is often thanks to the vocal performance and direction. From flipping off the adversary to stubborn calling a pile of blades
The perfect woman.
to your voices bullying the narrator into describing a kiss in excruciating detail.
Ugh, fine. You and the princess lock eyes and stare deep into each other's souls with all the roaring emotion that comes from letting what once was hatred turn into pure, unbridled passion. Are you making fun of us?
I seriously gotta commend the writers for somehow balancing a serious tone with these more comedic moments. Next, dichotomic symbolism. While the game flaunts its multifaceted scenarios where the answers aren't simply black or white, it places equal importance on duality in its symbolism. A hero and a princess, life and death, stasis and transformation, dark and light, choice and obligation, love and hate. Slay the Princess even challenges those standard dichotomies with its 2 leads. The long quiet, represented by a crow, is a higher being of stagnancy in life. But crows symbolize death. Isn't that strange? And the shifting mound, a goddess of change and death, is represented by a princess. But the classic trope that she is modeled after often depicts princesses as helplessly unable to alter their own fate without the presence of a knight, prince, or some other hero. That's like the opposite of change. Furthermore, the long quiet acts as a decider while modifying the least out of the two, always donning his feathery look from chapter to chapter. The shifting mound, on the other hand, can only react to others' perceptions, yet she transforms the most out of the two with a new design each route. The two main characters are at odds with their symbolism, and I love it. I'd reckon that the counter-stereotyping in both the long quiet and shifting mound is an integral part of the story. They oppose the narrator's construct through breaking the norms set by it.
Do we even have agency right now? We either do what she wants, or we do what he wants. Either way, we're listening to somebody. Please, nothing in life is a binary. Obviously, we find a third choice that nobody wants.
Slay the Princess has a very unique narrative set in a cozy fairy tale setting governed by an unknown greater power. Its themes of love, perception, and opposing philosophies are as lovely as they are evocative. These were further elevated by the consistent usage of dichotomic symbolism and counter-stereotypes, not to mention the endearing comedic moments that, while hit or miss at times, made the story and characters a bit more resonant. However, I could see that same humor maybe hindering the tensity of the circumstance. Additionally, the climax where you meet the narrator and shifting mound face to face was superbly executed. I'm pretty sure that will go down as one of the coolest finales I've ever seen in a visual novel. It's just a shame that the endings themselves couldn't quite maintain the same spark for me personally. I think it's also worth noting that route order itself can noticeably affect the enjoyability of the game, either spoiling elements en masse like the voices or enhancing certain moments. Regardless, there is no doubt that Slay the Princess has an incredibly solid narrative full of existential meaning and wit, earning it an impressive storyline rating of 9 out of 10. Oh boy, I love taking a stroll in the woods. The chirping of birds, the pitter-patter of light rain, and a gorgeous sunset view. Nothing could ruin this perfectly peaceful— Is that a cabin in the woods? A lot of cabins in the woods? Shit, there's more cabins than trees! Maybe my high school environmental science teacher had a point about deforestation. Well, nothing to do other than check it out. Ouch, that's gonna leave a laboo-boo. Did you just say—
I'm you 3 years from now. Go any further and you'll force my arthritis-stricken hand, sonny boy.
Damn, why do you look so old?
Graduate school.
I'd believe him if I were you. That shit is not for the weak.
Enough! That's not why I came here. I've traveled back in time to stop you from saying something so unbelievably stupid that it'd end up in a South Park episode and jeopardize me getting into grad school.
Surely it can't be that bad, right? Okay, fine. I won't say that Mommy Dommy Princess is the only good princess.
I warn you!
Cut. That scenario I just presented you was pretty quality stuff, yeah. It's at least better than anything Nintendo's putting out, but that bar's subterranean at this point. Basically, I just injected your brain with ample amounts of dopamine, the complete opposite of the gameplay in Slay the Princess. If Metroid's gameplay is a 5-star cuisine, Slay the Princess is a napkin, because it's a visual novel. Now, the UI is fine, and there are some quality of life features present. The gameplay is not working against you here. Included are the standard save, load, transcript, and skip buttons. Okay, I say standard, but literally 2 videos ago, I covered a visual novel that didn't even implement a save feature, so what do I know? And comparing Slay the Princess to other visual novels, I feel like its settings menu offers a decent bit of customizability. You can control what type of dialogue can be skipped over, the speed of auto-forwarding text, and the volume of the separate soundtracks. On top of that, you can change text size, spacing, and contrast, but those are already set at a perfect level, so I never really tweaked with them too much. The dialogue options themselves also had surprisingly effective usage of punctuational indicators for what type of effect the choice would have. Actions are denoted with brackets, spoken phrases have quotation marks while thoughts do not, and text that does not advance the scene is labeled explore in parentheses. While hardly impressive feats on their own, they certainly made navigating each chapter a trouble-free interaction for me, the player. But at the end of the day, Slay the Princess is still a visual novel. It's a story-focused game with negligible attention to gameplay. No silly mini-games, no sick combos, just straight clicking. Thankfully, the act of clicking was greatly enhanced by the comfy amount of options and optimizations provided by the devs. So Slay the Princess may not have any riveting mechanics, but it delivers a smooth visual novel experience, receiving an unsurprising gameplay rating of 2 out of 10. Slay the Princess is a love story, which requires one key component. Oh, what could it possibly be? The suspense is shifting my mouth! You can't tell a tale of the heart without characters who have hearts. And somehow this game manages to create two lovers split into like 30 different personalities. That's gotta be one awkward wedding. Do they even need to invite anyone? Sorry, I'm getting off track. Slay the Princess is centered around four, gosh, what do I even call them? Categories of character. You got the long quiet, the narrator, the voices, and the princess. From those, the voices and the princess vary considerably, forming an array of distinct natures and individualities among them. With that much splitting and alteration, you'd think that the characters are prone to being one-note and forgettable, but no. They're all quite fleshed out and pleasantly stand alone as their own individuals. Kicking things off with the big bird boy himself, the long quiet has the least to talk about among the cast. Probably because he has as many voiced lines as any Hoyo character during the SAG-AFTRA strikes. Those were rough times. If I were to describe him, I'd say he's sorta long and quiet for some reason. To be fair, I wouldn't talk much either if there were 3 different voices in my head constantly arguing about what to order from my local Burger King. Why a Burger King of all places? Simple. Most restaurants don't take too kindly to horrific Lovecraftian beings strolling up to the register and ordering a kid's meal going, "Oh, it's fine. Time hasn't moved for eons since my conception, so I'm technically still a child." Why would Burger King allow it though? Dude, you don't want to know. Oh, the horror. Other than that, the long quiet has funny dialogue options, but more often than not, it's the other characters reacting to his actions that are truly entertaining. As a silent protagonist, he fits the role well. Next up, the narrator is probably the only character whose personality I'd consider consistent. The narrator we know is an echo, or a fragment of a mortal man from ages long past, known as the Creator. Gravely fearing the inescapable loom of death, he split change itself into 2 entities: transformation, or the shifting mound, and stasis, or the long quiet. Understanding that the shifting mound possessed the capability to embody whatever others perceived her to be, the Creator took it upon himself to stop her. However, a mortal man is susceptible to intrusive thinking, and thus he ended his own life to ensure her demise. The piece of him that was left behind became the Long Quiet's guide on a mission to guarantee that the shifting mound is never viewed as a god. After all, an echo is unable to perceive the same way humans do, and as such, the Creator could achieve his goals even after death. This is not only an intriguing backstory that establishes reasoning for his never-ending quest to slay the princess, but makes him relatable to an extent. I think a majority of people can sympathize with this fear of death, because if time is limited, then regrets can emerge. It reminds me of this analogy I once heard. Imagine life as a grand library. The world and all of its opportunities, books on a shelf. In your hand, you hold a library card that grants access to an unlimited selection of stories and experiences, many of which will mold the life you live. The catch, though, is that checking out one book and reading it all the way through inevitably leaves less time for others. That library card will expire eventually, and you need to figure out how best to manage which books you read and which you set aside. Do you skim through as many books as possible? Do you take your time to get a thorough grasp on a select few? How do you know which books are worthwhile? Well, fellow readers may recommend books of their own. Some might even tell you that the story you're currently reading is not worth the time and effort. Thus, you're left in a great library, juggling your own decisions, others' opinions, and a persistently ticking clock. Regret is formed between the pages left unread. The Creator, and by proxy the narrator, likely felt a similar way. He'd witnessed the oblivion of his own universe and the suffering that followed. He is a victim of regret at the highest magnitude. For me, that is a very compelling character. The narrator is, simply put, an echo of a flawed mortal whose sorrow turned into extreme action in order to prevent his greatest regret. Ooh, also his reactions are hilarious.
Are you gonna say what she does? Do you want me to talk now? Well, yeah, she says she has something new. I want to hear about the new thing. Yeah, me too. I think I speak for all of us when I say that I would like to hear you describe her new thing. Really? Okay then.
The Creator's construct then splits both gods into tons of pieces. It revolves around you, the voices in your head, and the princess. So basically me minus the princess. You! Shit. Hey, Arthur, the man of doom from the crazy room. I thought I saw the last of you. And just who are these fellers? Ignore them. I think they're disembodied voices that... I don't really care, you bastard. It's your fault I couldn't finish writing my magnum opus. Huh? Oh, right. How's your Trump X Elon fanfic coming along?
Uncultured swine. Don't you know it's all about Trump X Clinton nowadays? Fuck your fanning ships. Cannons all the rave.
Didn't I tell you last time I wasn't into the whole politics? Actually, never mind. If anything, you reminded me why I escaped this room in the first place. Back on track, the voices of Slay the Princess are outstanding. These talkative little dudes stole the show by leaps and bounds. Don't get me wrong, the princesses are also amazing, but can they really beat?
The only furniture of note is a bent metal table. A pristine, we take it. Okay, sure, you take the blade before letting me finish telling you it's there. And then, we throw it out the window. What? That blade is the only edge we have. We are not. Too late, because we already did it, didn't we?
One eternity later. Don't lose your head. We're in a cabin. Take it from here. No steel claw, though. Was tossing it the only thing we've done that was permanent? That's a sick joke, universe. A sick joke.
Exactly. I didn't think so. Which voices you meet each playthrough vary depending on your actions. Whoa, it's almost like everything else in the game. Getting introduced to a new voice was one thing, but seeing how he would interact with the others was just magnifico.
Maybe only one bonus voice is allowed to be here at a time. Bonus voice?
And they're not simply decorations birthed out of thin air to senselessly yap about things you already know. That's the narrator's job. Rather, they serve as personifications of the specific personality traits reflected by your behavior. If you treat the princess as a fair maiden, being sweet whenever possible, you awaken the voice of the smitten. But if you abuse that kindness to lower her guard and stab her in the back, the voice of the opportunist awaits you. Or let's say you head right into the basement shouting, "Let me solo her." If you refuse to yield, holding your own to the bitter end, you might get the voice of the stubborn. Though, if you instead lose unceremoniously or flee the fight, the voice of the hunted will be there to make sure it doesn't happen again. Unlike all the other characters, these voices are generic, being static in their characterization and one note in their dialogue. There is the voice of the hero that's at your side from the get-go, but the other 10 voices are not guaranteed. Why is the voice of the hero with you from the beginning? Good question. Why was the princess a princess?
I didn't make her a princess, but I wove the idea of her into something your scattered mind could fathom. You chose for that something to be a princess.
It's also known that a small piece of the shifting mound is embedded deep within the Long Quiet, which would explain how different voices are formed. The voices are simple by nature because they resemble the literal extremes of the Long Quiet's attributes. And since he perceives the shifting mound as a princess, it's only logical that he would see himself as heroic, thus the voice of the hero. Pivoting towards the princesses, almost everything I said about the voices still holds true. If the voices are the Long Quiet's impression of his own actions, then the vessels are the consequences to those actions. Taking another look at my original 4 examples, the damsel is shaped by your assumption that she is harmless and kind. The witch is shaped by your employment of deceptively foul play. The adversary is shaped by your honesty and devotion to standing your ground. And the beast is shaped by your weak will and desperation. Just like the voices, the Shifting Mound's many vessels are exceedingly quirky characters, though not necessarily attached to archetypes. Oftentimes, the variations of the princess push past the confining box of character tropes. My favorite go-to example of this has to be the Thorn. To get to the Thorn, you must backstab the princess during the first chapter. This will take you to the overly skeptical witch. Here, you must hand over your pristine blade. Don't kill her. Don't abandon her. Don't leave her. Ultimately, the witch will take advantage of your goodwill like you had done to her the chapter before and drive the knife into your heart. You die, title card appears, and you're in the Thorns chapter. Entering the flower-covered cabin and descending into the thorny basement, we hear quite the disheartened voice from below.
I can't get away from you, can I? You betray me, I kill you, and you come back. You let me kill you, and you come back. I don't know why you let me do that. I don't know what you want from me. I think you know how this goes. I'm down here, and I can't leave. So, come down and talk. It's not like I can stop you.
You've both shown benevolence, and you've both thrown it to the wind. It is a cycle of selfish gestures and repeated one-upsmanship. And so it makes sense that the Thorn is spent. She is utterly dispirited. Yet, there is also a glimmer of hope. Amongst all the treachery and bad faiths, it's 2 imperfect people who just want what's best for themselves. Within this prison of thorns is finally the chance to make amends for all the wrongs and grow as individuals uninfluenced by external temptations. You both put trust on the line. Trust in each other that you both want to break the cruel cycle of scheming and betrayal. It's a beautiful build-up from the prior 2 chapters that makes for some of the sweetest character growth in the game. Wait, I don't know how I'm just realizing this, but I've neglected talking about the most important part of this game.
Don't jump to any weird conclusions. We're 2 people who have met each other. By definition, we have a relationship.
To understand how Slay the Princess is a love story, it's vital to know what the characters themselves represent. And I'm not talking about their canon in-universe representations, I mean the deeper level ideas behind their existences. I want to refer to this particular CG that appears during the Stranger route. I know. Hunter, what the hell am I looking at? This has nothing to do with relationships, you con artist. And to that I say, don't look at me, look at the words.
Consumption and betrayal, skepticism and blind devotion, rivalry and submission, terror and longing, pain and unfamiliarity. And at the heart of it all, an emotion that can only be described as
sex. Nah, I'm kidding. These are all potentially types of romantic relationships. Using these as a base, I want to explain how I define each type. I'll also be including the Chapter 2 princess and voice that are represented by the relationship. Now, let's talk love. Consumption refers to an abusive relationship where one person takes, or consumes, everything from their partner until nothing is left. This is represented by the beast and the voice of the hunted. Betrayal, like the name suggests, is a relationship where one partner shatters the trust of the other, leading to deep suspicion and wariness. This is represented by the witch and the voice of the opportunist. Skepticism, similar to betrayal, shows an air of mistrust, but likely due to miscommunication as opposed to outright deception. This is represented by the prisoner and the voice of the skeptic. Blind devotion is a facade of continued dissatisfaction. One partner might do everything in their power to make the other happy, even to their own detriment. This is represented by the damsel and the voice of the smitten. Rivalry is a weird one that could go two ways. It could be a relationship where both partners push each other to go past their limits, or on the flip side, it could be an endless cycle of violent acts and destructive behavior. One where love is more akin to passionate conflict. This is represented by the adversary and the voice of the stubborn. Submission is the complete opposite. It is a relationship defined by two clear, unequal roles, the dominant and the obedient. This is represented by the tower and the voice of the broken. Terror is another difficult one to pinpoint. I see it as manipulation, where one or both partners feel trapped and fear escaping the relationship. This is represented by the nightmare and the voice of the paranoid. Longing then mirrors terror, as a relationship centered around forgiveness and second chances. It is understanding past mistakes and learning to trust again. This is represented by the specter and the voice of the cold. Pain is, well, pain. A physically abusive relationship where painful encounters are masked by professed entertainment or affection. It is cruelty incarnate. This is represented by the razor and the voice of the cheated. And unfamiliarity might just be the most obvious one of them all. Simply put, it is a relationship where both partners hardly know a thing about each other. This is represented by the stranger and the voice of the contrarian. Of course, these are pretty surface level analyses of what the princess's routes could symbolize in terms of romantic relationships, though it is clearly quite open to interpretation since love itself is never cut and dry. Actually, I'll even throw in a bonus category: solitude. A relationship characterized by not being in a relationship. In other words, me and every single one of you. This is represented by the hunter and the voice of the hero, cause somehow bro didn't get paired up with any particular princess. It's fine, little dude. I love you like any other voice in my head. What's that? You're already in a relationship? Ah, what? Ugh. Guess I'm gonna have to press this dubiously green button that just so happens to disintegrate every one and two significant others. It isn't a flawless plan though. There ain't nothing I can do about polyamory except maybe pluck one or two people out of existence. But hey, it's a start. Good morning, afternoon, night. This is PR Hunter popping in to clarify that 100% Hunter is joking. He does not plan to eradicate the couples of planet Earth out of loneliness just yet. Also, another side tangent, I need to talk about the voice acting in this game. Nicole Goodnight voiced every one of the princesses, while Johnny Sims did so for all the voices, including the narrator. You heard me right, that's two people narrating over 30 different characters and still making them come across as vocally distinct. Nicole's performances were amazing, but Johnny's really surprised me. Specifically because none of his characters had physical bodies to help differentiate them. It was all focused in the voice itself. Yet, even when they're talking amongst themselves, I can close my eyes and point out each one accurately. If you couldn't tell by my voice right now, that is the most I've ever talked about a character in a video game. So, how do I rate them? The cast of Slay the Princess is as endearing as it gets. The star-crossed duo of The Long Quiet and Shifting Mound were compelling leads whose story posed many engaging questions about the concept of love. Their fragments, whether that be the voices or the princesses, stole the show even more so. They were the highlights of the game for me by far. And an honorable mention to the narrator, who felt like the perfect antagonist in this story. He was intriguing and had many memorable moments himself. Additionally, I was baffled to see the theme of dichotomies reflected in both the voices and princesses. aside from a couple exceptions, every character had a narrative pairing, which is so cool. Plus, you can't forget about the stellar voice acting that placed an emphasis on versatility and characterization. Honestly, I'm having an awfully hard time thinking of any negatives here. Sure, there were a few characters I didn't care about as much, but that's the same for almost any game with a roster of over 10. It would feel cheap to award Slay the Princess a character rating of anything less than a perfect 10 out of 10. Slay the Princess is a lot of things. It's story-driven, atmospheric, character-focused, and visually stunning. What it isn't is a combat-oriented game. There ain't no monsters here. Guys, settle down! Settle down! We're talking about a harmless damsel chained up to a fucking wall. What damage could she possibly inflict? Being too pure-hearted? I'm sure there was very good explanations for each of those. I get it. She's dangerous and the narrator was right. Is what I would say if I didn't enjoy every second of it. Who's with me? No, whatever, y'all suck. But yeah, the princesses do not feel like typical enemies from other games. There's no strategy involved with handling them. They have no interactive NPC behavior, and with so many outcomes, they can't actually impede your progress. If anything, they are narrative devices who lead you towards your good, neutral, or bad ending. Just not true enemies in a video game sense. Realistically, the only bona fide enemy in this game is 100% the hunter guy over there. I don't trust him a bit. This led me to the grand conclusion that Slay the Princess lacks any traditional foes, thus getting an enemy rating of not applicable. Oh hey, would you look at that? We somehow made it through half the categories. I just can't believe that most of this video's runtime up to this point was literally spent on 2 of those 4 sections. Really though, someone should have given me a heads up that a game about life and people and stuff has a lot to talk about. Luckily, the other 4 categories will be of a more digestible size. Also, make sure to smash that like button and absolutely obliterate the out of that subscribe button. Alright, now who the heck are you supposed to be? PR Manager Hunter, here to make sure the video not only succeeds, but exceeds expectations of public opinion. In fact, I appeared earlier in the video and you just ignored me. Oh, you poor thing. Anyways, just how many of us are there?
A lot!
Well, that was overstimulating. Before my mind implodes in on itself, let's get back to that critique, shall we? I've talked about this before in my previous videos, but being able to construct a diverse, recognizable location for the player is tough. You want to know how many other games have a cabin set in the woods? Yeah, I don't have any real numbers for that, but it's probably a lot. It's the exact reason plenty of 3D Mario games get criticized for generic biomes. Furthermore, it's even harder to repurpose a familiar locale into something new. Metroid Prime's Orphean Frigate is a phenomenal demonstration of this that has been lodged into my fat, crinkly brain since I was a wee urchin. Or, if you want a more recent game that handles this concept exceptionally, Meeside and its ever-evolving house does the trick. And what's even better about both of those examples I just brought up, I've covered both of them previously, so if you want to see how each of them handles setting recycling, go check those videos out. Wait, don't leave just yet, the bell does not dismiss you, I do. Now sit down and listen intently to my lecture about a little building known to some as the cabin. What is a cabin? A cabin is a hut built out of whole or split logs, with the first ones likely being built in Northern Europe during the Bronze Age. They popularly range from 1,000 to 2,000 square feet in space, with about 2 to 3 bedrooms. Typical features also include a fireplace and porch. Now look at the cabin in Slay the Princess. A single room, no fireplace, no beds, no chairs, just a single door leading to an empty basement. This ain't no cabin getaway, this is my depressing ass house in Animal Crossing. You know what? I'm out of here. I'm going home. I'm just gonna return the way I came.
As you step forward, the cabin explodes.
What the fuck is that?
My point is that the Prologue's cabin is beyond boring, doing the bare minimum in terms of design. But I don't love the standard cabin, I love what it morphs into. You see, every single princess in the game is paired with her own thematically mutual abode. Sometimes it becomes a castle of sorts, like the damsel, prisoner, or tower routes. Other times it remains a cabin but noticeably different, as seen in the Spectre, Razor, Grey, or Wraith. And every so often, it gives up on being a cabin entirely, instead opting for a building made entirely of chains, a grand cathedral, or a chamber filled with fleshy meat. We're just gonna ignore whatever it is I just stepped on. Or screw it, what if we slap it all together into a single structure? Man, all those previous buildings would never pass for a cabin, but this is home sweet home right here. Though in all honesty, for me the cabin art was half of the excitement. The other half came from guessing what the princess would look like based on her interior design skills. Since you always pass through this room before the basement, it gives a sweet little preview into what the princess's appearance would be this time. And on top of that, the design of the cabin reinforces the cliches of the princess. The prisoner has barred windows, a blatant nod to her role as captive. The Thorns cabin is overgrown with poppies and thorny plants, representing both the beauty of love and pain of betrayal that she has faced. The Eye of the Needle is in a narrow stone passageway, a physical embodiment of her namesake. You get the point. The cabin conforms to the current state of the princess just as much as her appearance does, and that's cool. Setting aside the cabin itself, there are some other locations, but they are far and few between. External portions of the construct include the path in the woods, the long quiet, and the ocean view. These are I didn't care for them too much, but I thought I'd insert them here just to cover all my bases. Slay the Princess exhausts the creative limits of a single landmark to an impressive degree. The changing scenery of the cabin is a treat to behold, even if it leaned more towards the plain side in its composition. In addition, the symbolism baked into each of the cabin's designs complemented its respective princesses well. Regardless, you are still visiting the same 3 locations: a forest, a cabin, and a basement. The variety can only carry it so far. As for the areas apart from the cabin, they were minimal yet similar in quality. The setting of Slay the Princess is simple yet quite effective, demonstrating its creativity in visual breadth over depth. Doing so, it obtains a location rating of 7 out of 10. I've mentioned earlier that Slay the Princess is set in a familiar fairy tale world. You got a princess, a hero, and our very own narrator. Black Tabby Games then took that setup and ran with it. From characters to locations to the UI, everything is illustrated in this charming hand-drawn-esque way. Well, actually, that's because the art is hand-drawn, and I believe digitally inverted to get it from paper to program. Abby Howard, the artist behind Slay the Princess, drew and inked the pencil sketches, while all the shading and color was done digitally. This ensured that every aspect of the visuals was consistent. The storybook game the vibe was aiming for was solidified further by the visible hatching on characters and environments. These seemingly unrefined lines are part of that hand-drawn appeal. With that, the choice to make the game primarily achromatic, or black and white, had a similar effect. Mix it all together and suddenly it's a tale as old as time come alive. The black and white color scheme was especially noticeable during the scarce POV swaps between princess and protagonist. You, the player, spend a majority of the game seeing predominantly white scenery in both the princess herself and the Okay, I get it. It is far from literal white. Just pay attention to how light it is, though. Huh? You think it actually looks quite dim already? Does this look any darker for you now? That's what I thought. This right now is what seeing through the princess's eyes looks like. All of the black line work and white lighting are inverted. I think this was done to play into the game's motif of duality, but as for any greater meaning, I'll leave that up to you guys if anyone has a theory why. The devs even knew to contrast the grayscale with a striking hue of red whenever necessary. Red is mainly used to signify hostility in text and any type of gore in the game. Personally, I wasn't too invested in the theory, but dang did her chapter look starkly different from any due to just how red it is. Although, no implementation of the color red resonated with me as much as it did during the Thorn chapter. Do you know the poem In Flanders Field? It recalls the horrific battlefields of World War I. It acknowledges fallen soldiers, people that up until moments ago were just like you and me, yet now they lay lifeless in Flanders Field. What I want to draw particular attention to are the flowers that proceeded to sprout amid the scattered crosses and warm bullet shells. Vibrant, resilient poppies, a symbol of remembrance, sacrifice, and hope. Now, what type of flowers are seen in the cabin throughout the Thorns chapter? Well, they ain't roses, I'll tell you that much. They're red poppies, the same flower that grew in Flanders Field. But here they take on a whole new meaning. Remembrance plays a huge part in this route. The Thorn has taken your earlier breach of trust to heart, making her understandably wary of you. To break this cycle of mistrust, however, you and the princess must both be willing to throw away your pride if you want to find that genuine bond. That's the chapter's representation of sacrifice. And once all is said and done, the two of you exit the cabin and enter a field of poppies under the starry night sky. Thus, the last theme, hope, is displayed by the abundant flowers. That's why I appreciate the minimal application of red in Slay the Princess. If it weren't for the eye-catching use of this color, I probably wouldn't have even given a passing glance at the flowers in this chapter. Character designs were also gorgeous in this game. In the Long Quiet's case, you barely even see the dude, and when you finally do, you probably think to yourself, geez bro, clip your nails! There's also his reflection in the mirror, depiction in Princess and the Dragon, or the CGR at the end of everything. I just can't believe that the princess's knight in shining armor is a whole-ass bird-lizard-man hybrid. Is this what the ladies are into nowadays? Can't say I blame him. Seriously though, a remarkably unexpected direction for the protagonist. But who cares about a sexy bird god? It's all about princesses who may or may not want to kill me. The shifting mound's plethora of vessels look outstanding. Each one's character design is warped by their emotional state and experiences. It's the difference between the burned gray wearing a wedding dress because she still desires to be with you, and the drowned gray wearing funeral attire because she mourns the potential relationship you cut short. Both were betrayed by putting their faith in you, though their perception of the situation are polar opposites. There's also the princess in Happily Ever After who wears the pristine blade as a necklace right above her heart. It's a demonstration of faith, complete trust that you won't stab her even though, as the narrator puts it,
So that's where it is. And the tip is already pointed right at her heart. Okay, everything is falling back into place. All you have to do is cross the room, push down a little, and the entire world is saved. Isn't that suspiciously easy?
That's what I'm saying.
Those are a mere 2 examples, but really any of the princesses have character designs that fit their narrative theming. Slay the Princess is a stunning blend of fantasy fables and visual novel staples. The hand-drawn art is immersive in the sense that it feels like we're peering into a classic storybook. And the mostly achromatic color scheme enhanced that impression further, though the captivating uncommon usage of red was appreciated as well. And above all, the character designs were top-notch, incorporating elements of their individual themes into their sprites. If anything, my main nitpick would be the game's emphasis on simplicity. The art is effective here, but there are few moments where I would describe the visuals as absolutely breathtaking. Though that isn't to take away from the fact that Slay the Princess is a fairy tale come to life, easily deserving of an aesthetic rating of 9 out of 10. Have you ever heard good music before? I know I have. Just speechless. I wonder if anything else could top that.
I think I'm in love.
But yeah, it is safe to say that Brandon Boone's compositions for Slay the Princess are endearingly euphonious. This theme I have playing right now is the first thing a player will hear. It's a sweetly soothing song that deceptively guides you into the middle of the woods just to thwack you on the back of the head with... After that shift, the music becomes tense, if not haunting. The elegant strings stripped of their warmth as eerier instruments fade in. Though before you know it, those intimidating instruments relent to the soft melody from earlier. It's an endless cycle just like the game. I can't emphasize enough how this song completely alters its musical scenery from beginning to middle to end. And that's just the main theme. What a way to grip the player. Also, you may have noticed that I name-dropped a dude back there. Brandon Boone, the composer for Slay the Princess. Did you know that this guy won 2024's World Soundtrack Awards for the game music category? Well, I didn't know before making this video, but I can definitely see it. Slay the Princess has an incredibly flexible OST with each princess getting her own personalized theme. These are narratively fitting pieces that spotlight personality traits, environments, or the current events that are unfolding. I mentioned the witch a lot throughout this video because her focus on betrayal and mistrust struck a chord with me, but her theme also played a part in the route's memorability. The music is a perfect blend of jumpy, uneasy notes and a rustic charm. It puts the player on edge while evoking the imagery of an archaic setting. The adversary is another one I regrettably don't see talked about all too often. Between the paced ticking, distant metal ringing, and beats that sound akin to stomps, everything here imitates the skill, power, and stature of the princess. The Beast was unfortunately one of my lesser favorite princesses. I don't know, she just wasn't really my cup of tea. Because I'm not a furry. But even if I'm not her biggest fan, the atmospheric tension is sublime. Imagery, art, and animation keep you on your toes because you are being hunted, not the other way around. This is complemented by the music, which has booming percussion and scattered piano notes that are accompanied by sounds of growls and heavy breaths. It is a lethal game of cat and mouse where only your wits and instincts can keep your bearings steady in the face of a monster. And I can assure you that the level of instrumental detail goes for most, if not all, of the other princess vessels. The kick-ass electric guitar of the Fury, the hopeless percussion of the Cage, the chilling music box of the Nightmare, or the commanding beats of the Apotheosis. It's hard to refrain from analyzing each princess's theme individually since every single piece is characterized so well. Additionally, Slay the Princess did musical distortion effectively. And if you didn't know, that's like one of the top 3 things any horror visual novel needs to check off the list. You know, right next to force closing the game and spooky kitchen knives, both of which are in Slay the Princess.
You'll always come back to the box, because you'll always want to know what it means to be you. I will be here waiting by your side until you're ready to return to mine.
The damsel is a literal caricature of the princess trope. I'd argue she has the least agency of any vessel since her sole purpose is to fulfill the role of damsel. In fact, the moment you begin to ask her what she wants, the facade begins to dismantle itself right before your eyes. The damsel twists and regresses until the most bare representation of a princess is left behind. All the while, the soundtrack warps into a distorted shadow of its former self. Even if you opt to slay the damsel, the music never returns to its original version, and makes for quite an impactful moment, all things considered.
I'm sorry. Did I do something wrong?
No, my love, you did nothing wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not you.
I'm going to die now. I think that's what you want.
And just like that, she's dead.
The Stranger Routes is another honorable mention for irregular music. Suiting the whole being a multitude of unknown faces thing, her themes overlay numerous familiar tunes from the other princesses in such a neat way. As you descend the stairs leading up to your first meeting with her, it plays parts of the Nightmare, Spectre, Prisoner, Witch, and so on. Then, during your interaction with the stranger, the music bursts as the princess begins to fracture. This section uses the conflict themes of the other princesses. I can really only describe it as utter madness. Last, I simply have to cover the music surrounding our 2 lovable metaphysically omnipotent entities, the Long Quiet and Shifting Mound. And because I'm already on the topic of creepy shit, Oblivion, the song that plays when the Long Quiet peers into the mirrors, is chilling. The strained echoed breaths, the low-pitched wailing, and the occasional vocals that chime in, it's unsettling. Everything in the song sounds lost? Like the individual components call out to each other but never really line up. It's off-putting in a way where I don't think I'd listen to this while studying for exams. Just think of the nightmares it would inevitably lead to in my sleep.
28 stab wounds. You didn't want to leave him a chance, huh? Did you feel anger? Hate? He was bleeding, begging you for mercy. But you stabbed him again and again and again.
Ugh. Yeah, we'll stick to listening to the moving arrangements of the Shifting Mound. Her themes come in the shape of 5 stages that evolve as you progress. Every time you bring a new vessel to her, the fog begins to dissipate, the veil gradually lifts, and you both come closer to understanding reality. Movement 1 is quiet, a soft piano, a stable clock, and a lone voice, the simple rhythm almost sounding like it is marching towards something greater than itself. Movement 2 is fuller. Instruments stay the same, but the once isolated voice is now joined by another, both filling the void with a beautiful hum. Movement 3 is developed. The previously prominent piano takes a backseat, and the clock disappears entirely. Now, the captivating chorus demands your attention. Movement 4 is resolute. Any instruments are gone. Instead, the ethereal lullaby of the voices control any and all sound in the space. Movement 5 is absolute. The ensemble is complete with both vocals and instruments present, yet neither competing for attention any longer. It seems like everything has fallen into place, like it was all meant to be from the start. In just 5 movements, we can observe how the Shifting Mound embodies change. The Long Quiet's theme might remain the same no matter how many times it plays, but hers is constantly restructuring towards a desired conclusion. Ultimately, this leads into transformation, the music that plays during the climactic struggle against the shifting mound in the end. I love the rising instrumental at the beginning that feels unnervingly powerful. Following that, the strings and percussion that join in are grand. It's fitting for a stage where two contrasting ideals will come to clash. Once the choral elements come in, they are noticeably confident and without their prior solemn mood. And it makes sense. The shifting mound is doing her utmost to convince you of her own voracious perspective.
Nothing is immutable. Everything that is exists only in relation to everything that isn't. There is no constant. There is no center.
Damn, she's right. I'm definitely off center right now. It's about time to rate this outlandishly magical OST. Slay the Princess's soundtrack is well deserving of its critical acclaim. The distinct themes for each of the game's vessels excelled at representing their personality traits, plot lines, and environments. There wasn't a single moment where I thought the music was out of place. Atmosphere in the game also benefited from technical effects like distorting or overlaying the music. This created creepier moments for sure. However, my favorite pieces came from the shifting mound with her 5 ethereal movements and iconic battle theme. Overall, the compositional brilliance of the soundtrack elevated the remarkability of both characters and story, receiving an equally notable music rating of 10 out of 10.
Oh boy, there's so much quality in its storyboarding, character writing, art direction, and music composition. And taking into account the current job market and pricing of games over the last couple of years, it's gotta be at least
$18.
I guess it is an indie title, but I heard it has a DLC expansion. How much?
It's free 99, little bro.
So, 99 cents?
What? No, it's free. Man, was I really this dumb when I was younger? Still, $18 for this experience is beyond worth it, trust me. Okay, there is a caveat. If you do a single playthrough and never touch the game again, it will be a blunder for your buck. Slay the Princess is a brief 3 to 4 hour game after all. Asterisk. In order to complete a single playthrough of the game, you must go through 5 core routes, meaning you only get to meet about 5 to 10 out of the 24 princess forms. So if you want to see every route at least once, then 3 minimum playthroughs are necessary. Though that's obviously assuming your routes are optimized and you avoid Chapter 2 endings or repeats on Chapter 3 endings. Otherwise, it could take many more playthroughs to experience all that. This is basically because every Chapter 2 can result in multiple Chapter 3s, all interconnecting in a weird branching web of choice. Here's an idea of what that looks like, and just know that the game doesn't actually provide a flowchart for you, which is a big fat L. I feel like that would have been really helpful. Furthermore, you gotta realize that every route has numerous self-contained endings. In the cage route, this could look like plenty of things. It could be your body's engaging in a perpetual physical altercation, it could be slaying her outright, it could even be escaping the tower with her in tow. Or, get this, what about escaping with her first, then dropping her head back down? I'd wager that'd be comedy gold. Oh, God, I was just kidding. I didn't think you would actually do that. You could have at least given her a heads up. Or would it be a heads down? You could have given her a head something. Wait, not that head, though, you know? Let's talk about collectibles. Everyone loves collectibles. As you play Slay the Princess, it has 2 side activities to engage in. First is the surprisingly expansive gallery, or memories as the game calls it. Let me just say right now that I adore everything about the presentation of Slay the Princess's gallery. The chibi icons of the princesses are absolutely adorable, admittedly, and the categories are neatly organized, offering great ease of access. CGs are separated by the Chapter 1 Princess, Long Quiet, and Shifting Mound up top, Chapter 2 vessels in the middle, and Chapter 3 vessels on the bottom. Open up the collection for any character, and those are arranged as well. There are even hints for how to unlock the abundant CGs. However, the assistance of those hints could only help me so much. There were many occasions where the action to obtain a certain image was so specific that I could go to the chapter 10 times over and probably still miss it. Moreover, saving, loading, and replaying a chapter did not guarantee access to every CG, since some required particular voices from a previous chapter. Now, none of this really affects the average player, so it's not that crazy. It's primarily a struggle for those wanting 100% completion, like moi. Additionally, you can't have 100% completion without having achievements. There are 131 of these suckers to hunt for, and they aren't all that bad. An overwhelming majority of the achievements come from exploring different dialogue options during the routes, which I mean, duh, no surprises there. Thankfully, they cover a wide range of the game's more interesting, comedic, or emotional moments, so going for 100% really does get you the full experience. Plus, 1 is literally for completing the entire gallery, so you will will know the game like the hilt of your pristine blade by the time that last achievement pops. Funny enough, for me the final achievement wasn't even gallery related. It was a new and unending dawn. And everyone hates you. This was a very fun spin on the typical ending where you slay the heart of the shifting mound, because this time the voices despise you too. I don't think there's a single event in the rest of the game where all of your mental companions loathe your presence. To achieve such a cruel conclusion, you essentially gotta tell your bros this.
Yeah, this mirror's about to atomize each and every one of you, but I'll be fine.
Breaking news. Local omnipresent deity found dead in his own cabin in the woods this afternoon. Eyewitnesses say that he brutally impaled himself with the blade in a spontaneous manner after shouting into thin air. This has left the public deeply shaken, wondering when will things not change. That's all the news I have for today's broadcast. We wish you a long, quiet night. Slay the Princess is not just a modern masterpiece, but it has a worthy amount of content to back it up. First and foremost, there are 24 princesses with likely over 100 conclusions between them. These branching paths are also quite complex, almost too much so if you're playing without a guide. This minor issue would have easily been mitigated by the addition of an in-game flowchart of the routes you've seen. And past the chapter-specific ones are 7 primary endings of the game. While they may have been underwhelming on average as I described before, I still appreciate the devs giving a larger selection of possible resolutions. The completionist inside me was thoroughly satisfied as well. Gallery CGs and achievements were a blast to hunt for, rewarding me with appreciating everything the game has to offer. Although even with hints, the steps to obtain a few of the gallery images were very specific and practically required an online guide. But this isn't to detract from the fact that the game has exceptional return on investment for the player. For a visual novel, Slay the Princess delivers on substance for the player, and I believe it is deserving of a considerable content rating of 8 out of 10. And so Slay the Princess has finally been completely critiqued. Well, here are the total scores for the game. As always, I must stress that these ratings do not necessarily determine the game's overall quality, since preferences can vary greatly between individuals. Slay the Princess shifted, no pun intended, my perspective on love. It wants you to take note of the interaction between change and stasis. You are also asked to contemplate a world devoid of death, pain, and loss. Through meeting the many princesses and engaging in their distinct stories, I came to the understanding that a world without change might as well be a world without love. Love requires mutual growth, compromise, and adaptation, all of which would be inconceivable in the narrator's ideal reality. Though stasis has its own value as well, allowing us to reflect and appreciate. Slay the Princess is as much a tale centered around the bond between a resilient princess and a valiant hero as it is a narrative on love in all of its forms.
I love you too. But I'm trying not to be sappy about it. Don't make me get all emotional.
Can't believe it took me this long to cover Slay the Princess. I shot all the footage way back in April and planned to cover it around then, but then got hella sidetracked. Honestly, I'm glad I critiqued it now rather than back in the spring because I've improved substantially skill-wise since then. I feel like I've been finally able to do this wonderful game justice. Even more unbelievable, we've grown a great deal in the number of achievement hunters and collectible gatherers on the channel. How cool is that? Alright, I'm beating around the bush because I get embarrassed really easily, okay? What I mean to say is thank you. Thank you to those from when I narrated my videos like this.
Over an hour of wondering if I look like a woman, I then decide if Felix can do it, I can too.
To those watching me for the first time now, this video was originally made with the intention of celebrating 1K subscribers, but in reality, I just love doing what I do. So hopefully this isn't the last time you see me, but even if it is, thank you for staying all the way through. If you enjoyed this series, please consider subscribing, turning on notifications, and most importantly, tuning into the next one. It would be 100% appreciated. And please, let me know if there was anything I missed, or something you believe should have been rated differently. Anyways, this has been 100% Hunter, and as always... Alright, I've brought you all your vessels. Sorry it took so long.
It's okay, days mean nothing in the mauve. In the mauve. I'm gonna be real with you, dude. I'm just gonna consume all those hunters and break free from this lame-ass construct.
What? You can't kill them, they're me!
Bro, please! It's so fucking boring down here.
Oh, well, would you like to split this ramen cup?
You know what?
Hell nah, broke-ass bitch, I'm literally God! What's that supposed to mean? Even gods can bleed! Guys, I don't say this often enough, but I love y'all. This is no longer the perfect world line. I'm out of here. You make graduate studies seem exciting.
That sentence has got to be the equivalent of a zonk.
When I grow up, I hope I'm nothing like that man.
Guys, I changed my mind. This is clearly not a love story. No amount of PR is going to save that cringe-ass line. Anyways, this has been 100% Hunter, and as always, I hope you follow your instincts and continue the hunt. Until next time, friends.